Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Crypto Chronicle Podcast here at Imperial Wealth. I have Taylor, who's seemingly laughing his face off.
Oh, I just can't help it. I love being here.
Yeah, we love being here. It's a bloody day for Bitcoin. It was
a sign.
Bit of a negative day for the Hawks yesterday on Easter Monday too.
You know what? The Hawks and Bitcoin are doing the same thing, bleeding.
Yeah, going backwards. But free my boy Jackie Ginnivan. I'm hoping the Wiz, he can't put him through the big sticks, but I'm hoping he max bids Bitcoin for me. But
that was a pearler, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's got to go down as one of the great misses. But
do you reckon he's done his ankle?
Yeah, I think he has.
Yeah.
I need to actually look that up, but this isn't the AFL podcast. Apologies, everyone.
Shout out to Jack. It could be the fat side, mate.
But it's been a somewhat interesting week, I think. I think price action for most has been pretty stale. I think it's safe to say from, let's call it Thursday to at least this morning, we consolidated between 69 and 71.
Yeah, it's been pretty stagnant, hasn't it?
Yeah, so it was kind of building a mini local range, I think, sending a lot of people insane. And I think it's kind of been a repeat of really what happened last time, in that we kind of grinded our way up, and in this grinding structure of price action, open interest build up heaps on altcoins in particular and on Bitcoin. And of course, you know, if price wants to stay still, market makers will push it in the direction of where most of the liquidity lies. And unfortunately, in a bull market, that's always on the long side. So we've spoken at length in the past, but, you know, in bull markets, you'll get, let's just call it a $10,000 pump from 62 to 72,000, or 60,000 to 71,000. You'll get a pullback to 65, and then it might go to 75, and so on and so forth. So it's not out of the ordinary.
Nah,
as such, but yeah, just in terms of price action, it's been a bit negative, but I wouldn't get too carried away about it. And
it's the quintessential 5 steps forwards, 2 steps back, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think I gave the example, or we at least discussed it on the podcast in the past, those 20% pullbacks what we looked at in 2021. Because if you go and look at the chart of 2020, you look at it and you'll just say it's up only. And then you look a little deeper and there's 6 negative 20 to 40% pullbacks in there in that 6-month rise. And we've had them already. We've discussed in the 48 to 38. We had one, you know, what it was from 73 to 60 that we did recently. So look, there's a bit to digest. I think we'll touch on it more in the TA part, because I'll kind of reiterate a message I sent to our Trading Academy investors and members. But for now, let's get into the news. Of course, on the Residency Australian Imperial Wealth ETF podcast, that's what the real name should be.
ETF update.
Literally, but I've just got a little bullish piece here that I'll include in the Chronicle, but it's Larry. Larry right now is our number one shiller, right?
Mr. Fink.
Like, let's just say the real world is CT, which for those that don't know is crypto Twitter, CT. And Larry is like the head influencer. He's the one with like 1.5 million followers, and like every now and then he just pops in and drops some alpha and everyone's like, whoa. But Larry's allowed to be the number one shiller because his ETF is a record-breaking ETF that we speak on. And essentially what he's done is he goes on probably once a month, doesn't he, on CBNC or whatever it is, and expresses how satisfied he kind of is with Bitcoin. And it's amassed over 13.5 billion in 11 weeks, just for that record. So
staggering.
Yeah, staggering. Absolutely staggering. So Hashdex also came into competition on the 27th. So Hashdex, I think, have been in the mix for an Ethereum one with a mixed kind of spot and futures. I'll have to go back over that. But the good thing about Larry is him doing this once per month is him just kind of reaffirming that long-term outlook that I think gets lost. You know, everyone's so caught up in the price action, and Larry talks about gold, and then he compares Bitcoin, and he says, you know, this is why we're allocating 2.5 or 0.5% of my clients' money there, because, you know, it's an outstanding, long-standing asset. So very good. Our boy Samuel.
It's playing tennis.
Peace, bozo.
God.
But the former FTX CEO, if you are a listener of this podcast, I think the only times we've really been talking about FTX, I guess, is the repayment schedules now.
They said they'd repay,
scam payments, which is a joke because, you know, there was someone in this court case, I apologize, I can't remember his name, but essentially he was a witness, and he went on stand saying, you know, I lost $200,000 in this. So, you know, it was my money from my family, and I was about to put it into a mortgage, and I just woke up one day and it was gone. And, you know, it's quite sad to kind of see the reality of it all in there, because obviously we talk about Sam, and I joke about Sam a lot, and we joke about the FTX saga, but, you know, on the other side is like a lot of, you know, hundreds of thousands of people that lost, you know, their life savings.
100%.
And, you know, it goes back to a conversation that we have all the time, and we've had it so many times in Discord, I feel recently. For those that don't know, we have a Discord that you can join where everyone chats in, but, you know, in the general chat, there's been a bit of conversations about custody, hasn't there? Like, oh, can I put this on my Trezor, or should I get, you know, this wallet, or what should I be doing? And, you know, it goes back to what we say is just never, ever have money on a centralized exchange.
Mate, it goes in the same with mining, right? Because like a lot of clients look at it as a way to be able to sell and liquidate BTC whenever they want, right? Which is 100% what it is. But if you're looking to store anything on an exchange for more than like a month, don't. Don't. Just don't.
Or just if you need to have amounts in there, have them small amounts that almost that you'd say like you're investing, right? Just that you're willing to lose, because unfortunately the nature of this game is literally nothing is safe, you know. I'm not even going to go ahead and say cold storage is 100% safe, because it's not. You could be robbed of it. You could, but the thing is that just stubbornly holding it, or having that thought process of it won't happen to me, it won't happen to me, it won't happen to Binance, or it won't happen to FTX, is the exact thought process everyone that had their family homes stored in FTX thought. Because if you've got Tom Brady, Shaquille O'Neal, was it Matt Damon? Was he one? I don't know who it was. If you're watching TV every night and these guys are telling you how good Sam is and he's fixed the world and this exchange is the greatest exchange ever, of course you're not going to take your money off it. That's my point being, is that like there's literally not one dream. Yeah, well, there's not one exchange that's immune to anything. This is the game we're in. So that's
especially because like exchanges like that, they're obviously somewhat, you know, one person has control in the end almost, which not you. And no one knows what these people are like personally. And I think that's the tale to take out of Sam, is that, you know, he was this guy that was, reputation was built up on altruism, and, you know, he's this, you know, young autistic guy that just wants to help the world, and he's found it through crypto, and, you know, he would never do anything bad, and it's like it all comes out the other end, and it's well, it's a naive of people to think that crypto exchanges are not doing the exact same as a bank. Which is giving you a small percentage for staking it or whatever it is and lending it out.
And you know, I don't want to shit on centralized exchanges. I like sexes. They definitely have a purpose in our ecosystem, and we need them. And, you know, shout outs to CoinStash in particular, our partner. They're a great exchange, definitely the best Australian one, best customer support. But yeah, it just goes to show that no exchange, I won't recommend holding anything on any exchange, and all goes to cold storage. And, you know, if you are one of those people wondering, then we've been having multiple conversations in Discord, but definitely cold storage is always optimal. And I think as we move through this cycle, you'll see more and more people move away. But I do want to talk on something that I'll talk on now, and it's about Base. I'm not sure if we've spoken about Base.
Not a huge amount, no.
Yeah, so obviously for those that don't know, Base is a layer 2, another layer 2, of course, to Ethereum. But the cool thing about Base is that it's obviously via Coinbase, or they're going to have you know, big things there. Well, it's Coinbase's Ethereum layer 2. But obviously the cool thing there, and why you should start paying attention to Base, and why I'm starting to pay a lot of attention to it, is the mainstream adoption. You know, in the last bull run, the number one downloaded app at the peak of the bull run was Coinbase on the App Store. Apple App Store was number one. I'm guessing if you expect the same thing to happen, which I would expect the same thing to happen, you'd want to be on the chain that probably has that access, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
You'd want to be on the chain that is onboarding the majority of people, and that will be Base. So this week, their decentralized exchange volume set a record. So it was over $1 billion. I think Uniswap accounted for majority of that. So it was 1.21 billion on March 30, which was up 25% from the previous day.
Wow.
Uniswap accounted for 65% of it, Aerodrome, SharkSwap, etc. But yeah, I think what you really need to look at Base is like, it's just kind of like the next hub for retail.
Well, exactly. And like particularly when you look at it from, say, like a market share percentage, Coinbase is going to be the one that's going to market the most out of everyone.
Yeah, sure.
So they're definitely going to have the most traffic.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the easiest way to look at this, right, is if you go back to last cycle and you look at centralized exchanges, and you look at how the cycle played out and where retail and majority of people that got onboarded pivoted to, what chain was it? It was actually BSC, and it was BNB because it was the cheapest chain and they were the biggest exchange. Obviously Coinbase for Americans were, but Binance is the biggest.
Worldwide, yeah.
And so if you're someone new and your friend goes, sign up to Binance, just put $100 in and you go and buy it, and you go, oh, cool. Oh, Binance has BSC, their own chain. Oh, cost me $120 to do an Ethereum transaction. It cost me 2 cents to do.
Base, yeah, exactly.
And so that was the playbook of last time. It was like, especially in that late cycle, if you invested even in BNB, it went up to $750 or whatever it was. But you invested in a lot of meme coins or utilities on BSC, you printed a lot of money because that's where everyone flocked to because it was the cheapest, it was the fastest, it was the most retail.
There was so much stuff going on as well.
It was so retail friendly though. Yeah. And so if you just think the same thing's going to okay, well, which one was going to be the most retail friendly this cycle? It has to be cheap, has to be accessible.
So, so there's the next thing. Does that make it base or Sol?
Well, in terms of, do I think it'll flip Sol? Or
I just mean in general. Like, do you think there'll be more retail that'll flow through to Sol because of its utility?
Well, I actually think it's a really interesting point for April and May. And watching, Sol has taken majority of liquidity of this market in terms of meme coins. $1 billion in a day is telling me otherwise. So I think you're going to see a spread here, but my prediction is that meme coins will run the hardest now on base because of the onboarding, and I think most builders and devs or people that whatever you call them that start meme coins will want to pivot to base because of that.
Well, especially because like Sol, if you want to get involved in a bunch of things, it's not exactly the easiest for retail investors to get involved with. So you're right. Yeah,
so I think if particularly once they release base fully through the app, I don't know how this will be done, but I imagine if you can just like log into your Coinbase app and it's just like on the base network and you can that's my thinking around it. I think if you look into that history on BNB, BSC, late 21 cycle, there's a lot of similarities between the two. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how it plays out. But that actually is something, it's a really good question you posed because I've thought about that last week. I thought, all right, well, because what you have to be forward thinking about is narratives. Okay, what's the next narrative? If you thought about AI a couple of months before it came out, right, you're a millionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
If you thought about memes, which would have been really hard to predict, obviously because they usually come late cycle.
But you know what I mean? With hat, I know what that's going to be like. Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? There would have been people out there that allocated a shit ton of money to Doge, WIF and stuff a few months ago going, I'm just going to do this to prepare myself. And, the 10x, 50x, they're back. Yeah. It's forward thinking. And so I was thinking last week and I was like, okay, what is it going to be of April? And I feel like I just couldn't shake memes out of my head. Like I couldn't, I don't want it to be the narrative, but unfortunately it's the way it's trending is that you can't hate on meme coins for onboarding retail to us. I understand the purpose that they don't have utility and
I think we're seeing that mini alt season.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean, like, it's kind of natural. We've seen BTC and everything else go to near all-time highs for everything else.
Yeah,
kind of makes sense.
Yeah, well,
bit of rotation in capital.
I think so, but I think once again, I'll dive into this a bit more. I think next week's podcast and the week after will be a lot better to discuss this as we're moving closer towards the halving, but. It's really hard to assess because the halving short-term price action isn't great historically. People get sucked into thinking like, the halving's here, we're going to pump to 100,000. It's like every other halving, like we've traded sideways or down a little bit afterwards, and then it's been
bang.
It's
like a 2-month rule. Almost. The 90-day rule.
Yeah, it's like 90-day rule where we just trade, and then just like before you can blink, it's like. So that's been the play. The last few cycles, last few halvings, I should say. There's no. As we've said so many times, we've made an ath before the halving this time. So you can't it's not the same as price cycles where we're going, okay, we pulled back, okay, from the 618, traded sideways, okay, and then the halving happened and then we did X amount and blah, 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 blah. So it's not the same.
This is going to be the most different halving I think we've ever seen. Yeah,
exactly. And accounting for that is the fact that, $10 billion 136,000 BTC has left exchanges since January 11, when the ETFs are approved. So I think it was a good point to touch on what we were talking about just then. So mass withdrawals have continued in the first quarter. Glassnode revealed, combined BTC balances are at their lowest since 2018. So
that really doesn't surprise me how Kraken sold out for 18 hours.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No, yeah, but just with the halving though is if this continues this pace is we get the demand squeeze, but the supply squeeze now as well.
Yeah, 100%, and that's the thing. I think I was having an interesting chat about it the other day with someone, and they were saying how this is going to be so different, being that the time frames behind that scarcity and squeeze are going to be exacerbated because of the demand spike that's coming pre-halving.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't kind of really quantify institutional demand, can you? No. And we know the retail demand will come, but it's a pivotal moment, isn't it? Because we either sink or we swim, and I feel like, and I'm going to say this now, and I don't mean it wholeheartedly, but I feel like the halving is a nothing event for me. And I think it's because whatever happens was supposed to happen, and people will attribute it to the halving. Yeah. So I think if we just continue upwards, then that was just by nature of law that there was the demand always there. I understand the statistics here with the supply that comes onto the market, but that's just the supply that comes onto the market. That doesn't discount people just selling their own Bitcoin throughout the day, because people go, oh, but BlackRock are buying this amount, but we're only mining this amount, so price must go. But no, there's still other people selling supply onto the market. It's not just what gets mined. Yeah. But as I said, I think it was written, whatever happens, happens, and I don't think the halving really has any, I don't think it dictates much.
I just think it reaffirms what people already know. Yeah. And that is that something is valuable. Yeah. There's not as much of it coming out. Yeah, so therefore I've got to buy more of it.
As I've kind of said, it's like, Bitcoin is a barometer of liquidity and risk, right? So if you go back over time, and I've shown these charts in the Chronicle actually, on a macro view of liquidity in Bitcoin, you see the chart, liquidity in M2 supply goes up. And I just feel like cyclically and very luckily, macroeconomically wise, the halving has just happened to fall on a macro scale when liquidity is dried up and then boosted up. And I think people have fallen into the trap of that have been attributing way too much value to the halving. And my point being, if you go and look at the 90 days post halving, other times when the supply shocks have happened, the price hasn't moved. Yeah. So I don't read too much into it, but I still think, it's an interesting month or two, because I hope the bullish trend can continue, because I think if it doesn't, I think stock markets are due for a pullback. And it's going to be interesting to see people who are so hell-bent on the halving, if macro pulls back in line and BTC follows it, what they'll have to say about the halving after that. Because in theory, if the halving is so strong in terms of a supply and demand shock, then it should annihilate any form of macro bearishness. So,
interesting. I like this.
Yeah, so it's all very
dark and stormy in Melbourne, and now it's dark and stormy in the office. Look out!
But I sound like I'm being quite bearish on the halving. I apologise, but it's just the way I see things, and I'll say it how it is.
You're a very much technical-based person.
I'm a very technical-based person.
Anything that is alternative to that, it's always a grain of salt.
Yes, exactly. But to finish off, we had Bitwise submit an SEC application for the Spot Ethereum ETF. So they obviously intend to list on the NASDAQ, I believe. So the deadline, as we've noted, is the 23rd of May. So it's about a month and a half away. Sorry, I was about to say a month after the halving.
It is pretty much.
Yeah. So what is that date at now?
It's currently 21st of April.
Okay.
I expect it to be the 19th, but forgive and forget. Yeah.
So just to recap people on that, is that everyone was always super confident these would get approved, particularly after BTC got approved. Yeah. A lot of doubt lingering now because the SEC came out and they're probing the Ethereum Foundation for ETH being a security, blah, 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 blah. As Taylor and I said last week, I think we said as long as BlackRock are kind of in the corner, we're happy to believe that it's being approved.
My money's on black.
Yeah, my money's on black too. But yeah, I mean, once you go black, you can never go back, can you? In terms of BlackRock, Taylor... Come on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess that's just a wait and see. I guess there's not really any saying with ETH. I think it gets approved, and I think any news that comes out to there will just be FUD that turns into bullish news eventually.
There's always going to be people that are going to try and kick it. And
exactly.
ETH's dropped $400.
Exactly. The same thing happens every cycle. Everyone will see. Yeah. But quickly moving on to, I will just quickly look at the charts of Bitcoin. We're currently trading at 66,700. So as noted, I think this morning we're at 70, weren't we?
Yeah, 69 something, yeah.
And so essentially what's happened overnight is we've had pretty much a local range drop. And as I said before, there's so much open interest that builds up in bull markets where everyone tries to chase through longing, through margin and leverage. And that's because majority are sideline. I've spoken about this at length. Yeah. So we're just getting this vicious cycle where people that want to buy, will pump, everyone will chase with longs, and then as soon as the spot demand dries up and the selling comes in, then everyone's positions just get unwinded because of their stop losses and liquidations. And unfortunately, we saw Bitcoin go from 69,500, I'll say, to 65,500 within 10, 15 minutes today. And that's the result of an open interest unwind and a liquidation event. So I'll throw the stats in on the liquidations into the update. I'm sure it was in the hundreds of millions, no doubt.
Yeah, that's per usual.
Yeah. So I'll include some support levels there. For me personally, if we are in this 3 or 5 wave count that I've been talking about in terms of Elliott wave, I expect us to continue upwards, and I wouldn't expect us to lose this 66,000 level. I think if we do lose that level, there's reasons to probably think we can visit the 50s. I'm just going to be honest, because a lack of demand when you push up to these levels is usually a sign of exhaustion in a trend, which doesn't mean I don't know about you, but I will personally, I'm in two minds because I don't like pullbacks because I don't like them for my clients or for anyone or for the market in general, but I know I'll buy things cheaper.
I'm literally in the same boat.
Yeah, so
it's emotionally tearing because you go, oh, that looks really good, and I like seeing my balance go up, but then you're like, oh, I also would like to buy more.
Yeah, exactly. So and so those Trading Academy members, for the coin that we bought last week, which I think it's at, it's still at that current same price we bought. Obviously, our average buy is lower. But I bought that at a higher price because I wanted more, and so I'm just hoping it pulls back more and I can get more even cheaper.
But that is, to be honest, I was going through it the other day with someone who joined the Trading Academy a few weeks ago, and they were saying should I be buying this stuff that you guys bought 6 months ago? Yeah. And I said, well, yeah, if you don't have any, it's probably worthwhile. But I said, do not allocate all of your funds towards that. Say for an example, put 50% in now. Wait a month. If it's still the same price, put another 25%. If it goes lower, awesome. You've bagged yourself more at a lower cost. So having that dollar DCA sort of approach across getting into something new is always obviously the way we recommend it.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we tell every new member because there's nothing worse. And, the prime example was the one we used in the Discord, the Phantom one. Yeah. I think at the time it was 35 cents or 40 cents, sorry. And, I was saying, we bought this at 20 cents literally 18 months ago, 12 months ago. I watched Phantom when we bought it at 20 cents go from 20 cents to 70 cents mid-cycle, mid-bear market. Went all the way back down to 15 cents. So I, tripled my money and then watched it come all the way down into negative red. Watched it go all the way back up, down. But anyway,
just jigsawing,
Yeah, and, I had probably 3 or 4 new members join the Trading Academy, and I just used Phantom as the example at the time because I was super bullish on Phantom then. For those day traders, and if you've ever seen my Twitter, you've probably seen the large swing position I've had on Phantom from that exact level. And I was telling them, look, this is pumped 100%. Most members have it from lower, but you need to be able to train your mind to buy some of it now, and as Taylor said, plan for lower or add more as it goes up, because I laid out all the fundamental bullish reasons behind Phantom. I said, and even the technical ones, I said its ATH is $4. You're asking me if I should buy it at 40 cents. It's got the Sonic upgrade coming, XYZ. And within a week, Phantom was priced at $1. Yeah. And it hadn't actually moved for so long before that. It was just random that I'd use that example because I wanted them to buy it. Yeah. Oh, I didn't want them to buy it, but I was explaining, this is still a great coin to buy, even though it's pumped 100%. And then you look at the result. If those guys bought it, they could have had as much as a 3x, a week ago when it was $1.20. So definitely don't get deterred if you're sidelined and things have pumped, because you need to ask yourself, I think the easiest thing to ask is, okay, let's say Solana at 190. What is my price target for Solana? And even if I wanted to buy it at $50, all right, well, I think it's going to go to $1,000. Why aren't you buying it at 180? For a high conviction bag like Solana or Phantom or even ETH or BTC, is if you know, stick to your majors and stick to your high conviction bags, because even if you're late, they're still going to make money.
Yeah. I'll put it to perspective. Like, even, to be honest, chain flip.
Yeah.
I did not buy as much as what I wanted to buy.
Yeah.
And it was because when you put it out, I was away.
Yeah.
And so I bought half, and now I'm going to buy more another half.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So it's applicable across the bag.
Yeah. 100%. Alrighty. Well, mining, not too much to update on mining.
No, not necessarily. Like, everything's pretty much the same as last week. And I know I've been saying that a few weeks in a row, but it's just more or less we are in a bit of a holding pattern as we go into the halving. Non-event, Mitchell. But there is obviously the World Mining Summit was in Oman over the weekend, so that brought out some new things that are coming up from a few manufacturers. So Bitmain's brought out its new S21 Pro, which they love putting the word Pro behind a machine.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same as an S21, just slightly bit better.
Yeah.
So it's coming in the back end of Q3, early Q4. Cool. Not really something that's too exciting because it's exactly the same, just a little bit higher performing, although it does put it down to 15 joules per terahash, which is sort of, getting you really close to that single digit, which is very daunting in that fact. But it'll be an interesting watch over the next sort of 6 to 8 months as to what comes out. But not revolutionary in comparison to, T21s and stuff like that. So still pretty cool. But yeah, not much going on our front. It's all pretty stable. Yeah, cool. No worries. Alrighty, well, I think that'll wrap us up for this week. Of course, if you guys are interested in getting involved in dollar cost averaging, the Trading Academy has a ton of new members signing up at the moment. In the day trading, we're kind of treading water at the moment. We're long on a few things, but working things out as well as we begin to range. And I guess, if mining interests you, get in touch with Taylor, or of course, this podcast is posted weekly into the Discord, so you can always reach out to us in there as well. Got a question for you, just because I saw it last night. I might finish off on it.
Yeah.
Rate cuts.
Yes.
Coming.
Look, I am in two worlds with this. I know it's kind of seem like I'm in two worlds, but that's the mind of a trader. Is that, there's nothing's a given, even in macro. Anyone telling you otherwise has no idea. But the predictions were for March, April, got pushed to June, July. My thinking is now is right. Is they're so hell-bent on 2% inflation? Fair enough. If they want that, why would they cut rates?
Yeah, I know, Ron. Yeah.
And if the economy is looking strong and Jerome Powell has been able to pump the stock markets to incredible all-time highs, whilst interest rates are at all-time highs of the last 3 decades, but he hasn't achieved his inflation target yet, I'm wondering why everyone thinks there's going to be rate cuts.
I was curious myself, and that was, to be honest, exactly the methodology I had. That is, it doesn't make sense for them to cut.
No, it doesn't. And my big call of 2024 is that they're saying there's going to be cuts, but my big call is I can see them not cutting at all this year, and maybe the first one coming early next year or something.
Yeah, because I think they'll print and they'll not cut.
Yeah, and maybe it'll come down to unemployment and some other economic factors that they might have to cut on, as opposed to just inflation and whatnot, and GDP and stuff. But my general understanding is that it looks fine, and there's no desperate need to cut to create economic activity because it's already there.
Yeah.
Stock markets are flying. The only issue really at the moment, I think, is credit and inflation. But still, it's a good question, and it's one that haunts me because I think it's going to, for some alpha for people out there, is it'll dictate when I begin to de-risk from the crypto market. Two major macro events I'll look at are rate cuts and the election, both of which should, if they do cut rates, it'll occur between June and November of this year. The election is in November as well. So
please watch.
Yeah, we can have a hour conversation on this, but for those that do want to follow macro or interest rates, the most important thing actually isn't the decision itself. It's always Jerome Powell's language that he uses after.
God, I hate listening to him.
He hardly has a spine these days, Jebediah. So, alrighty, thank you everyone for listening. We'll catch you all next week. Thank you.
Done.